Today we're going to show you how to break down and reassemble the Sig Sauer P320. So the first step is you always want to check and make sure that the firearm is unloaded. Mag release, no ammunition in the magazine. Rack that slide a few times, make sure there's no ejections. Press up on the slide release, lock it in place, visually inspect your firearm. Make sure there are no rounds in that chamber. You can also put your finger in there to be sure. Alright, so we know that this is not loaded. We can continue with the breakdown process. Next, you're going to turn down the takedown lever to about 7 o'clock. Now this can be really stiff, so don't be surprised. This one is fairly stiff. Now, hold down that slide release and hold on to that slide because it's going to be coming off just like that. As you can see, we currently have two parts. That includes your slide assembly with your recoil spring and your barrel, and then you have your frame with your fire control assembly inside. Next, we're going to break down the slide assembly. That includes your recoil spring and your barrel. This is very simple. Apply a little bit of pressure to that spring. You'll see it come off and just pull it out, okay? That's all you need. The barrel, very little pressure, it will already be loose. Slide it forward and out. Your barrel is now removed. Slide, empty. Next, we're going to remove the fire control assembly. All right, so this can be a little bit more complicated than breaking down the slide assembly. You'll need to remove the takedown lever. Okay, this can be fairly difficult. What I like to use is a hex key set, the largest one, and an old towel to set down on this side of the takedown lever, right? So we want to pop that out. So what I do is I cover the firearm just to make sure we don't have any scratches. Make sure to have that lined up. And then I apply pressure and you'll see that come out. Okay? You just need to twist it a little bit and your takedown lever will come out. Next, we need to remove the fire control assembly. Lift up right here. Okay? This will dislodge from the back and I'll slide right out. Okay, we now have an empty frame. Your fire control assembly is removed, including the trigger. Now that everything is removed, this is the time to give your firearm a deep cleaning, get off all that crud and dirt, lubricate it, then begin reassembling your firearm. Alright guys, we're going to start reassembling the firearm now from our last step up to our first step. So first it's going to be reinstalling the fire control assembly. It's fairly easy. I like to eyeball the trigger and with the trigger entrance and drop it back down in there, right? So I just have it sitting on top for your visual. I'm going to narrow it down into the rear, slide it back so it locks in place, and press down. Hear that click? We want to hear that click, and now we know that it's in place. Next, we have to reinstall the takedown lever. It's going back into the frame through the fire control assembly once you know that it's fully seated back in place. All right, this can take a little bit of time. It's recommended to kind of twist the lever because it has to get through here. It's kind of odd on how it sits. Right, so now we're lined back up. Again, give that some pressure. You'll see it locked back into place here, and spin that back down to where we need it at the 7 o'clock position. Once the takedown lever is back in, your fire control assembly is in line. The frame is now complete. Next, we're going to reassemble the slide. Start out with your barrel. Sit it down into the slide. Lock it back in place. You should hear it and won't be able to go back any further. Next, you take a recoil spring, okay? Set it down on top of the barrel. Apply some pressure, and it should lock into place and be center. Once that is complete, your slide assembly is now back together. Now that the slide is back together, we're going to be reinstalling it to the frame of the firearm. You'll notice on the back of your slide, you have these two spots. They're going to line up perfectly with the fire control assembly that's inside the frame. So that's what we want to do next. Line them up and seat that slide flush up against the frame and bring it back. You're going to hear a little click here. Next, lift up on the slide release, because on the Sig Sauers, we need to lock it back. Okay? Flip that back. Your Sig Sauer is now reassembled. You could reinstall a magazine if you want to, but it's best to test function it. All right, so let's rock that slide. Point the firearm in a safe direction and pull the trigger. Okay, we have that reset. Lock it back. Reinstall the magazine. You now have yourself a reassembled Sig Sauer P320. Alright, so there you have it. You now know how to disassemble and reassemble your Sig Sauer P320. This is one of my favorite pistols that I have. We also have the compact model as well, so I'll be doing a side-by-side comparison soon. So stay in the loop, subscribe to our channel, and we'll talk to you soon.